수다드네 다 다니 든지 아니 란주다 레텔이야 아니 지금 머리 비고네 나오게 레 머리 바자기 아니 덕군이랑 쓰는 머리 바자기 군이 남베다 레 되네 춘이 롱고순도냐 바샤 셴베가네 되게 레 숨체 다단다 란조 아니 땡기 참디 아니 춘이 롱고순도냐 바샤 셴베가네 아니 레테 제발라 아니 배연들다 양양도 곰고유도 잠베 아니 딘제디 아니 랑라이나양 배저 냐월시바 지중화다 신된 제발이나양 배저 냐월시바 중보이네 주마롱 냐베 로직 게토버지다 디네스고 그랬어.
And so sort of thinking back to these three sort of ways in which I talked about the different forms of the cycles of the 12 processes of the 12 links in relation to, karma, which is sort of driven by the ignorance, and then there's a series of the 12 links driven by the underpinned by the sort of force of the imprints from the ignorance, and then even a third one in terms of that of even a cycle of the 12 links related to being entering into a meditative equipoise on the nature of suchness, and then thinking about in the context of these, particularly in relation to the third one, the benefits of being able to the benefits and sort of qualities of being able to act in a kind of effortless manner for effortless manner for the welfare of self and others, and so then he's got there. So he's got his voice at radio.
Your clone.
Yeah, my clone.
Your clone.
Cloned.
Okay.
Yeah, and then so because of the Shen.
장된나야 남주 장된나야 추구곰 고바다. 아니 신된로 수구곰 고라 세바나 신체제 아니 장된나야나야 신도 가서래 배전이 월시와. 아니 현주도 고도 세대. 다랑신 이게 된 주발라 들리고도 사면야. 삼로당당 직수에도 산지 표현들라.
So thinking in terms of the benefit of in relation to the benefits of the qualities, and therefore the sort of great benefits that the Buddha is able to accomplish in terms of so even from our own even from the purpose of attaining our own the purposes, our own purposes, our own aims and welfare, and also but definitely in relation to achieving the aims and purposes of others, then having this having a body in particularly in relation this form body which is able to spontaneously achieve those aims without and effortlessly and spontaneously be able to achieve those aims. So it's important to think about the qualities of the Buddha also in that way.
남샤준도 지워지고 그러와. 저단 지워디 가르고 그러세도 잠배 안에 상예야디 아니 현정기치도 전주sem께 산제조 고방 토고도 슬라고요레 아니 랑전을 가려요레서도 랑전을 추구마도 토고마레 생선으로 지라본도 잠배 때제 셈소들라야 말티 추구마도 토고마레 생선으로 지요레 이나야 딱 베젓 냐와시벌 튕기주고 꾸디요레 슬라도 잠배 야고 때즈랑 진진당 안조로 요레데 이나야 오다 딘테지 중배이나 삼산지야고 삼로 직수야도
So we also need to sort of create, these are sort of ways of sort of creating our ways of directing or creating our ways of thinking about thinking correctly about these things. And so, for instance, in terms of we think about in terms of attaining the fully enlightened state for the benefit for the benefit of others, and therefore the need to attain that fully enlightened state in order and for the welfare of others. But if we think in terms of our own sort of purposes, sometimes we also sort of have that. Sort of, we think in terms of attaining the qualities of the Buddha, that for our own purposes we would attain the body of the Dharmakaya, the Chugu, the Dharmakaya. But in terms of attaining, even though we may have a little bit of sort of self-cherishing towards sort of more personal accomplishments in terms of thinking of attaining the enlightened state, and and attaining that Dharmakaya for the sake of oneself. But actually, if we're thinking in terms of being able to benefit others, then spontaneously and effortlessly being able to benefit others, then we should also really be thinking in this context of the form body, which is able to do that. And this is in sort of reflection on having that wish to attain enlightenment for the welfare of others, which is how we say things.
Because this question of bodhicitta, whenever we think of bodhicitta, then you're always thinking like for the sake of happiness of sentient beings, to give teachings to sentient beings, to give full enlightenment to sentient beings. We only have focus of that. Then we are full of self-cherishing, self-grasping plus. And then what sometimes there is a big question from this self-cherishing mind saying, then what is for me? On everything for others. It's a little bit stupid question for sure, but of course it happens. So then if you cannot answer that, then there is no joy when you feel like, thinking of all sentient beings, nothing for me, so maybe not important. So when you think of this, the effortless, the
Spontaneous and effortless.
Spontaneous, effortless, the body,
form body,
and then you will think like, this is very important, because we don't like effort. Right? And then that's why what we say when we look at these three vehicles, the liberation is called no more learning. So chol dirwa nyendogi lamya shebina nyendogi ani milolam.
Yeah, so and if you go up through this the paths of the hero vehicle, then you get to the path of no more learning of the hero vehicle.
The Indu Zambe tatanda bezu seyadi ko jingotsu goyada gotsam goye geje Indu Zambe ko jige no more learning se geje di takdanan de yoma ko jinsen ko learn de geje mare de ko effort yobe geje 제가 덴데기 삼로디 다 매버지 소토이나 아니 가랑라야 베즈 매베 토네 심지어 엔더 심지어 된 체마토에 누 삼삼들리와
제토금인도스
덴데 베즈 녀월십을 튼주주 꾸지 톱소나 엔 심지어 된 체마토에 게면 누 삼그러봐
so then so even if we talk in terms of this path of no more learning that we're describing here but actually that's still a place where effort is required. So when we effort means making effort means that we have to sort of get things going. We have to keep things going or get things going. And so even this path of no more learning of, say, like the hero vehicle is some place that still requires effort. But if we are able to eliminate them, if we're able to sort of wish to achieve this this form body, which is able to act spontaneously and without and have all forms of effort needed effort to be pacified, so it's completely effortless. Then if we're able thinking about being able to help sentient beings, then we feel with that kind of body it would be possible to do this.
지상하다 디 딘제기 베제니 워십을 현지 두고 꾸디 아니 간데스 중고도 세도점be 아니 심진을 된 레치도와
Semjin the Deni Legido. So that's because they rare with it.
데 용야디
To achieve that and to bring that into reality, that spontaneously body which is able to act spontaneously and effortlessly for the welfare of the sentient beings, that also relies on sentient beings in order to develop it.
제장가 당분이 self cherishing 승의 가르도스는 심진지 영마르베냐 된로버지 최고 സമയ마도 오스트레일리아 미지고 계급지고 제도 인삼대비나 신대비미 돈이 두고 도와요 말해 한 라바도 다 미직마도 아니 심진 탐체스라나 스스로 다다오지요 팀마도 심진 탐체스라나 루비메비 좀zen 가르레스나 베조니 워십을 흔주 두비 꾸세 고라 오 그런 루단디 아니 몰람디 간데 주어스라나 디드비 몰람디 단다 산주 몰람 시디 땅아랑조 남유교르고 요르와 단단히 지나는 땅교들이 심지어를 태야 대신 아가서 난게 털도 주고 지자뭐 심지어를 태야 대신 지자를 뭐 타줘가 다게 몰람 타야 되자뭐 세리 산주나로 몰람디리 아니 지시나와 내가 로와지시 내줘 대시다 내줘 로회동에 세월쇼서 다 되저로다 짜와디 몰람.
And so, instead of thinking in terms of this, the spontaneous effort, the body which is able to work spontaneously and effortlessly for all sentient beings, and in terms of attaining that, but you have to remember that it sort of involves the elimination of our self-cherishing mind, because we have to think in terms of all the sentient beings. So this means every single sentient being without exception. There can't be sort of one, we can't leave out one particular sentient being because they're our enemy or for some other reason. So it's not that way of just, for instance, taking all of the people of Austria and wishing to be a spontaneous, effortless help to them, or a particular country. It has to involve every single sentient being without exception. So there is not one sentient being that is not included in this. And that is the sort of motivation that has to be there in order for us to achieve this spontaneous and effortless, this body which is able to spontaneously and effortlessly fulfill the welfare of all beings. And this... And so, there are certain prayers which are regularly recited, which to bring this kind of motivational context to us, the way of sort of developing that wish to not leave out even one sentient being. So there's a prayer from at the end of the King of Prayers, which is called the Extent of the Aspiration. It's a section of the King of Prayers, which reads. Sentient beings are limitless as the boundless expanse of space. So shall my prayers of aspiration for them be as limitless as their karma and harmful emotions. And then also in Shantideva, at the end of in the 10th chapter, the dedication chapter of Shantideva, there's a prayer as long as space remains, as long as sentient beings remain, so shall I too remain to dispel the misery of the world. I'm pitching I'll try and give the quotes to Christine because I think she can put them in the group, because some of you won't have these quotes. So that'll be.
Yeah. So when you say this prayer, so it is very, very good if you can say this prayer with two thinking, two ways of thinking. One is 단다간주 상제 육구 주베가라. 아니 꾸니 챈된 수고도 랑된 추고세티. 계셔는 랑된라야 베멜 렌주도 꾸지라야 치다. 챈된 디꾸디기 shendun bemelunji to chetores.
Randi.
Odi chungboina, and Ranglaya, Beva Meba, Lungi do chungboina, that tell her, Tobiaki, Marva, this some churwa.
Oh, yeah. So actually, it's also good to think in this way in terms of thinking about the way we attain the bodies of the Buddha, and so we usually talk about the Dharmakaya body, the Dharma body, or the Dharmakaya, which is said to be for the sort of purposes or aims of oneself, and then the form body, which is said to be for the purposes and welfare of others. But also, although it's not actually possible to attain it, we can also think about achieving. So, in terms of the others' welfare, we think of achieving this form body, which is able to spontaneously and effortlessly work for the welfare of all sentient beings. And also, on top of that, we can also think about attaining a body, one of the Buddha's bodies, which spontaneously and effortlessly works for our own welfare. But it's not actually something we can actually achieve. But having that kind of way of thinking is also
Cannot chipsna. Cannot chipsna.
As a top randig chedu the shin says a rangi chedu lungi to be good the top two women those Chiran Somarbe. Top two Tom Tunaya.
Randun to Sibrata. So, Cheda Chanju, when we talk about Bodhicitta, then we talk about Dumbani.
Dumbani is two aspirations or intentions. Yeah.
Chezanga, Randun to Chugu. For yourself, Dharmakaya. Then for others, the Karsa Sambodhakaya. Rupakaya. So normally, you only think the emptiness only. What you get is only emptiness. Emptiness of the something. Then you don't feel so strong to wish to gain this Dharmakaya. But that is not only the thing. You need to make more stronger connection with this. So the connection is not the reason why we need the Dharmakaya is something that you become effortless from that. So then you really wanted to feel if there is an antidote, which no more headache, and you become, you can give a teaching 24/7 with it meaningful, not like me just going blah blah blah. So then this you really wanted to have this antidote. So this antidote you will get when you get the Dharmakaya simultaneously. So because this question, one of the very smart student asked my teacher that thinking of sentient beings achieving bodhicitta, what will really get? Then my teacher thought Dharmakaya, and then he just had a little bit of with this. The student really wants to know the essence there, and then it took a little time for my teacher to think about that. So then slowly he come to this is a really good question. So normally we need to connect all this together. So that means when normally to get enlightenment for yourself, what you get is Dharmakaya. Then what does that Dharmakaya do? To get rid of this obscuration to the knowledge. That only. So then the real answer is becoming effortless. Because Buddha there is no Buddha that is not giving a teaching directly or indirectly. He must do that. There's no, it's like where my teacher would say in the Shantideva's text, there is a particular quotation saying, why in the time of the sentient beings, 디르바 가서다 초람 졸람다 아니 통람다 고람지 값소 네 동부섬로 거요 봐 계전 장면 숨세지 계전 장면 숨그 고시 잡야지 고시 잡야지도 와 어디 고시 잡야 디기 누바 텔레데 두벌 때네 아니 자킹기 자킹요 봐 자마스니 자킹기 꼬라탕 맞아랑 저르스 배주다 집에 꼬라 잡잖아 아니 되네 꼬라 배주 매버 코랑 코르데야디 되나 신치지 로발람이 내가서 조사 주장 제가 텔레데니 아니 산지기 배밀현지 구두 순구래 해서 지요레스
And so in terms of thinking in terms of how we achieve this effortless and spontaneous body, and thinking in terms of in the paths, how we also the accumulation of merit over the three, how it said over the three countless eons for the with the path of accumulation and preparation for one eon, and then the path of the impure paths of the bodhisattva and the purified paths of the bodhisattva as a countless eon each. So those three countless eons of practicing to doing purification and creating merit or creating positive positive factors, and then on the basis of that, then being able to on the basis of those three countless eons of positive sort of energy, then we are able to the spontaneous and effortless the body of the Buddha arises. And a sort of analogy to this would be how at the beginning, so those are on the paths of learning, and then on the path of no more learning, the spontaneous and effortless body. So in analogy to that, we can think of a potter, a person who makes a pot, who at the beginning has to use effort to get the potter's wheel to spin, but slowly, once he's got it going, then there's no more effort is required to spin the wheel. So you can think about this accumulating merit and purification, then leading to this ability to spontaneously and effortlessly work for the welfare of others in this way.
This example is in the way of Bodhisattva's life. Digi tanda tak mangboji shegoya karishe slavna. Diji hakosona ane nyomo senayang. Ane sheba mehaba machaba. Tandoyang le yudu zambe samegi le chiyo yoba digi. Tandoyang ane jig angyo targodo samsam le ondo zambe ane sanje yukoman tobyaki bezode rangshingi le yores.
So then, why I was talking about all of these things, so what is important for us to sort of know and recognize is that even if we're able to exhaust the mental afflictions, then this won't stop the sort of, as we were talking before, the continuity of the consciousness, because there's still a karma, there's still forms of karma which are left over, such as this untainted karma. So again, we need to be liberated from these other more subtle forms of karma, and then this is to encourage us to work hard to then to make effort to then also achieve liberation from these other more subtle forms of karma in order to attain these states of the Buddha.
Number dili dan rawa namsu jubur juru sedu maribi wangi kunya dangni ani duji ki tendene sonde manju tende yana juni ju kwa khodanti khodan jig yo ma se ani dina shinji ki jig da jumbe go kobang le chabe ina yang dandong yang ani rawa sigota simjen yang kwa simjen 단도 삼진 차디고 여러 다 좀봐도 심진 디다기 야 코아 니바지도 코단지 요레스 다 되네 아니 상지 상제잖아요 된제기 단동야 아니 레다 된제기 레디 아니 알아줘 단지 기지 쉐이바 타마데 슈니를 지주도 냐버 샤하시면 거네 아니 레디우 거네 아니 지스난 거 마세기 봐도 아니 샘쟁이 된체도 전에 쉐바기 다른 버디 터도 되고 지우루 지시도 되고 그랬어
타도 되고
지우루
지
지
So, and then we could sort of also talk about this in the context of one final vehicle, one final vehicle, and then in this way of which the we have one sort of complete process of the 12 links of dependent origination, which begins with the first link of ignorance all the way around to birth and sickness and death, and then this. Even if we're able to sort of liberate ourselves from this process, this form of the 12 links, and then to achieve the state of an arhat, but even after that, we would still call these arhats sentient beings, and so then there would be a second. The second sort of level that we were talking about here, where they wish to get rid of these other, they wish to be liberated from this second process of the 12 links of dependent origination, going from ignorance all the way to old age and death, following this process also, and so. And then the kind of the third is essentially number shan yes.
동일의 제주는 되게 레사단데 숨이와.
아, 그래.
타마데. 동일의 제주도 냐버 샤하시면안에 레사요야지.
And so then also this third sort of way of accumulating karma by accumulating karma with the driving force of being in single-pointed meditative equipoise on suchness, and then accumulating karma on the basis of that. So, because the tatu tepa chik say digi kanda tugiresta tatu tepa chik to tupa say digi.
터도 대부 숨죽이 남 셰발 타마요를 라브바.
알레
년들 좀 톱사바다. 라멘 양대 원도 쳐바다. 리버 윤체바.
제.
터도 대부 주주라. 리버 윤체 요마르바.
제. 라데.
윤체 유비 좀생 가르셰레. 터도 레세당. 다 셰바 요마르스 라브바. 터도 대부 주주기. 레세 차르 세들 레들 리버 망고셰제. 안 단다 상지 사바도 레디 주요자 남시요.
And sangi sala the young namshi the kitchenche
요마르바. 본로고르바 탄데. 레사고르라바.
Sumbadela. Yeah. So okay, so this is a sort of way when we were talking earlier about the three final vehicles. So we talked about how that in sort of like, for instance, the hera vehicle, that when the karma was exhausted, then the consciousness would end the continuity of consciousness. So, but in this presentation, which is only one final vehicle, then what happens is that there is always karma. So there will never be the end of the continuity of consciousness. So as saying about the first process of the 12 links, where we're creating that being liberated from that form of karma and becoming an arhat, but still they're a sentient being, and still then the process which is related to the karma of the imprints laid down by the ignorance, and then so then the arhat consciousness would not be cut at that, or it doesn't, the continuum of the consciousness does not stop at that point. There's still something further to go. They then being liberated from that, the imprints laid down by the ignorance and the karma which is created in relation to that, and then going up towards Buddhahood, still the continuity of consciousness remains, and then this third level of how we described the creating karma in relation to single-pointed meditative equipoise on emptiness. So then even there, the karma is created so that even when we reach the state of complete enlightenment, karma is not completely exhausted. The karma is not exhausted; it's still being created, and therefore consciousness. There's the continuum of consciousness does not need to stop. Piece really just shock.
가진스나 상계선 동일의 지주 냠바샤베고네
Yeah.
진수 퍼진 쪽이 냠내는 거 봐. 지바당으로 추림 송구로 서버 공부를 차상 요어 봐. 얘네 뒤체단데 매주 매번 돈는 거 봐.
So on this level where we're talking about attaining the fully enlightened state and being in the single-pointed equipoise on suchness, but still also in this context, the Buddha is still performing the sort of practices of the six perfections. But these are then effortless. These become effortless at this point. Of course, they're being effortless, but they're effortless. But they're because a young karma so there's still the accumulation or the creation of karma, even at this level. And Sanghi Kisali.
Unstained karma?
Unstained. Samik
Sanghi Kisala.
Yeah. Samik lady Maribi Pajagi Kunilang to my the Tony Zizu, the number Shashim.
So there are two. So there's the ones which are in the second level is the one where there is the untainted karma, but this untainted karma is underpinned by or sort of driven by the imprints laid down by the ignorance. And then on this third level, what is happening is you don't have that you don't have the ignorance at all. There's no ignorance, there's no imprints or the ignorance, but the driving force is the single point of meditative equipoise on emptiness. So that Alex was asking, is that tainted karma or untainted karma? So Rinpoche said that's untainted karma, but not driven by the imprints which are put down by ignorance. Some in the knee. Yeah, some in knee.
Some in knee. 약간 집군의 론직이 뒤로 와라.
Yeah. So
다 딘지기래 ngaranzu yang tende yang jungni gang chu kora tawo indu zambe ta tende niba dyji le mambo sabate ani namshi gi tendo ani sha yudu zambe ta niba dyji le tine ani dyji le digi number sheba dile ya sha du nam di member chebo ndu zambe ta gewa chimi ge ji xie wu ba ta ka gewa chimi le ge ji xie wu ta azo dibkoso number sheba shuk durna se di 다된다 찍딜을 내버려 나버셔버 죽주나 세도 잠베 아니 나버셔버디 마이 녀도 닝점 잡아나 세선로 지르바 디인도 잠베 다 된데 나버셔버디라 가도 마슈군가라 아니 디니 다 바도 증가져 지단에 다 바도기 계제디 내가 좀 자루 봐냐
and so then in looking back at these towards the 12 links here in terms of how we were discussing this about karmic formations or karmic formatives and how that they and then the 가서 두시기 드부디 그슬
남시간 사셔와
the 드부디
다디르와 다 편지 레기 개와 슈마 팽고 봐다 개와 디기 안주 레 창문조 안주 잠베 편지 응아르기 편지기래 누가 조사도 다 개와 사월에 온도 준비 편지기래 사월도 용거 봐. 디온도 준비 단대 편지기래 당 아주 단대 디간을 샤셔줘 돼. 남시에 땡을 샤줘 편지래디야. 멤버 지지도 준비 다 멤버 지어 용인데 아주 다 파르두기 계전에 야도로 다. 디네 개와 디네 파치만 로고도 준비.
Yeah, so then from these sort of karmic formations which lay down throwing karma on the consciousness at the time at this time, but then these throwing karmas which are laid down on the consciousness will then ripen will then be ripened into a future life, which is when it says in the root text here of it's the third line of the second verse, so it's at the top of page 4, where it says in the root text, after consciousness has entered, So here, after consciousness has entered, is referring to when the consciousness enters into the mother's womb. But before that, also the when the throwing karma, there is a throwing karma which ripens when the karma of the throwing karma of this life is exhausted, and then at the end of this life, then bardo chubi ki pension
ta penji le kyewa shume gi le de da bardo gi dinye chibar ba ta di mingur ba di kyewa di zor ba ta kyewa chima ma chi ko ne bardo li ba.
So before that process of the consciousness entering into the mother's womb, then as the karma of this life is exhausted, and then there will be a new throwing karma which will take us into a future life, which is a new karma, one of the karmas laid down on our consciousness, which will then be ripened and will lead us into a future life. But before this process of the consciousness entering into the mother's womb, before that comes this very important time within the bardo.
So throwing karma also, maybe we can say sometimes we have a validity, like the visa. And then also when you make a reservation for 2-3 days in a good hotel, and then when the validity is the time expires, then at 10 o'clock you have to check out. You cannot say, can I stay, I pay more. You can't do that.
Yeah.
So you have to rebook, or you need to have the merit, which is the money. And then only the money doesn't much matter. Then they have these own rules, whether they have the vacancies or where. So it looks like same. Normally we say we are the guest here. So we are a guest in this world. It's kind of like this is the guest house. That's just what we say. So it comes with the validity. 제장가 다 딘데 개와되냐 봐 표현도 전에 다 개와 치먹기 쉬운 거를 개와 치먹기 좀 말려고는 바르돌레브레 바르도디 개와 철견들에서 거보다 개와 제일 되냐디 다 개와 제베가로야 아니 고 개와 제니데 지구도데 이네 다 망보지기 바르돌레야 리서치 지구 여러데 아니 바르도 나로를 유비기 아니 바르돌로 수요시고 다 수디 아니 가만히 중보를 해서 네 제주 진행도 또 공부를 지래.
And so then in this way that through a new throwing karma we moving on to a future rebirth, but before actually taking the real rebirth, then before that there's this state after death, between death and the new rebirth of the bardo, and sometimes this is this bardo or intermediate sort of existent state is described as a state where we're actually searching for the new rebirth, and actually this topic of this intermediate existence or state is something which is quite rare. That there's not that much sort of research that has sort of been done into to some extent, because the question will, because in that intermediate state there is a form, the sentient being has form, but nobody is really. It seems that in researching about the intermediate state, not many have researched into where that form, the form of the sentient being within that bardo state, where it came from, or how it was produced.
당아럽지도 시베이나 아니 딘데기 단다 파르도나로 유베기 소비년인데 니 단다 소다디 조금도 와 다디 단다 소고기 딘데기 소다디 거한이 열었을 딘데기 소다디다 아니 지금 개와 링규기 링기 기시기 급기 아니 소다다 지고 지장 주요레스 this is what.
So then it's said that in this intermediate state that this form, the physical form of the being in that state is this sort of shape and or of everything is similar to the that which will be taken in the actual rebirth in the birth existence state. So this is in the intermediate existence state, but it will be similar to that which will be taken to the form which will be taken up in the existence, the birth existence in that time. But it's sort of the question is what is the substantial, the sort of substantial cause of that physical form in the intermediate state, because it's not our body from this previous life when we die goes into it, but it will be it is a physical form which is kind of similar character to that, similar sort of shape, etc., to the one which we will be born in after the Bada. So the question is, what is the substantial cause of this form in the intermediate state?
다디 얘기 gengi tos research 남체 제정가 될 research 남비가로야 아니 또 진짜기 슝디 때 공부를 체 아니 되네 단다 제르무치기 달다다디 다치기 로마 단다 키루르무치기 대중 얘기면 세기 나로야 아니 레베니만 베바 단다 교선 계속 중간에 신 레베니만 베베기 아니 슝지 꽤 남체 아니 진짜기 갈소리 파르두기 류기 녀렌텔이야 레기 샤베 바자드레스
레기 샤베 바샤
어디 지금 세부 꽤나샤 꽤도스.
And so one of my teachers did some research into this topic, and they're actually the texts on this kind of subject are quite rare, but he found some discussion of this matter in one of Lama Tsongkhapa's disciples, Kedrup Je, in his text clearing away the darkness of the mental darkness, which is a text by Kedrup Je, and in that Kedrup Je quotes from an Indian master called Surya Gupta, who states that this the substantial cause of this form, physical form in the intermediate state is the substantial cause of it is imprints laying down so imprints that come from being laid down by karma.
제정가 디 유점에 다들 기루름 치기 뒤송 안테네 제자름 치기 귤라 터지기 나로라 도지기 콩제니 안 도이 값소 가르송도 슬라나 아니 레기 규체바다 녀목이 깬체바
레기 규체바
레기 규체바다 녀목이 깬체바스 송차스 다 레기 규체바스야디 녀렌체베 되어레스 아니 녀목이 깬체바셔바데 렌지 체젠체베 되어레스.
And so that's a statement that's made from Kedrup Je, that it's the imprints laid down by karma. In also Lama Tsongkhapa's one of his other main disciples, Gyaltsab Je, in his commentary on the Uttara Tantra, who quoting from Sutra, I think he says that because the karma is the cause, like the substantial cause, and the afflictions, the mental afflictions, are the cooperative conditions. So the main substantial cause is karma, and the conditions, the cooperative conditions, are the mental afflictions, so these are the causes and conditions which make that create that form body.
perceiving lugi nyalentela leyin sheje tanda gesarum chi songdela teni khotobya chikche da digala dedun yiji message kapso ane tanda leben nimo bebegi ane bajagi yore sidu jambe da di samudangsa hijra wores.
So on the basis of these two statements, we've got something to help us to base to sort of really think about this. So in these two statements, what you see is the sort of talking about this substantial cause of this physical form in the physical body in the intermediate state, is where you have Gyaltsab saying that it's karma, but then you have Kedrup saying it's the imprints or the potentialities which are laying down by the karma. So this gives us a sort of some sort of opportunity, some basis to and how to think about this.
키루를 묻히기 뭐 Rinpoche 주저봐 키루를 묻히기는 도저히 나한테 아니 레슨이 심중 선박한 시에오레스 레슨이 심중 선박한 시에오도 잠베 되네 샘기 수기는 저기 여러베스
and so Kedru Day, who's a very sharp mind, sort of did a sort of a philosophical analysis of this and thinking, well, if we say that it's if it's karma, then karma. Alex, what was the you use for semba? Semba
and urging.
Urging. Okay, so I use that word. So when we talk about urging, this mental factor of urging, semba in Tibetan, then this, if we say that if karma is this mental factor of urging, then this is a di sem yinza sheba yinza yeah. So then he brings up this question. Well, this, if that's what you identify it as, which is a mental factor, it's a sort of it's non-material mental factor, can that actually act as a substantial cause for form, for material, for something material?
과지가 셰베기준은 셰바 연구하지다 수기준라 수랑 로고야지 시고로 봐.
So it's because it's explained that for continuums of consciousness, then the sort of substantial causes should be consciousness, and for looking at a continuum of form, the substantial cause should be form itself.
단다디 도심 투명으로 그러. 단다디 도심 투명으로 인도 잠베 어디. 다디 인도 잠베 제장가 딜리아 삼로 당당 직다 카릴라비올 수도 기루름 지기. 아니 레기 바자 샤단들 니두스.
So then Kedru Day comes up with having analyzed this and thought about this in this way. He says that he thinks there are two ways in which karma sort of is laying down.
다 레기 바자 샤단들 니여변에 지 가르스나
the imprints of karma are laying down. Sorry.
셰바랑기 셰바 코랑기 오고 아니 발은이 수지. 대직 뒤두선배 디셰베니에 책그레스 디니디니 셰바 코나기 그레스 다 바자 직디 가르샤 그래서나 아라는 주기 레 남샤준도 가리 사바이나 지게 레 거두거두 온도 주베 레 가디 가리 사바이나 디 거두거두 바장을 내 주리 딜리 셰바 인고에 캬바케요 말레스 디 딘데디 치주 수공으로 교회 기지셔요 그레스.
And so then dividing this way in which the sort of imprints are laid, karmic imprints are laid down, he divides it into two. So one is a sort of where the sort of the sort of mental states, the karmic mental states, then go into a sort of I'm trying to think Bala now. They go into a sort of dormant state. So the consciousness goes into a kind of dormant state, which then again can arise and act as and this dormant state could go into arise and act as a substantial cause for consciousness. But then all the other kind of karmic actions that we're doing of all kinds, then the imprints that are laid down by them, not all of them need to be like that, because they don't need to be the sort of the karma which is consciousness, which then goes into a dormant state. There can be other forms of karma, and some of those could operate as a substantial cause for producing this form in the intermediate state.
어디 인도 참배 단다 다디기 공간 좀 맞는 배약 쉬더디 아니 밀음기 속 배샤이드리스.
So the best example of this would be when we talk about the form in a dream form, a form in a dream.
제가 니 구두 참배 니람나로리아 랑부체지 땅배이나 right? The way na pojudo dang sen. Pojuji ni nam dang be na. Right? Ni lam nang ge pojudi ani ko pojuci ni 밖에 말 봐. 예를 들면 그 pojudi 그 통해요 봐. 통고 봐. 또 통해디기 난게 셰바데 참은지리. 통해기 비게 수데 수 참은지리 봐다.
And so, when if we think of this example of forms in a dream, physical, sort of forms in a dream, and so, for instance, if we go to sleep and then we have a dream of perhaps of an elephant, or particularly here when we go to sleep and because the cows are all outside with their bells sort of tinkling away, so we might go to sleep and have a dream of the cow, and in the dream of the cow, we dream about the cow in the dream is not, of course, it's not a real cow, right? It's a dream cow, but we see the cow in our dreams, and so in this state of a dream, the consciousness is at a kind of subtle level, and then also we could say that the form of the cow that appears to the dream, this dream cow form, is a kind of subtle kind of form.
다디 가와니 딘제기 gyudi kawane chungsha di shasa kawane shargido slade ngargi paju tsini baji tongje digi shabe pajag teni shargi yobade ngajo ta nyawagi shetu gorba.
So we could know from our experiences. So if we ask ourselves, how did that happen? Our dream of the cow, and of course the way we'd explain it is that because we, in our waking state, we'd seen the cows, and then on the basis of that we'd sort of formed a kind of imprint in the consciousness, and then this is arisen in the as a form of a cow in the dream.
제장가다 말한지 배디리지에 초창하나 아니 단다 산지기 산지기 수고 고기 년들이야 아니 산지 고랑게다 수구 고랑 가르레스 수구 류디 가르레스라도 잠베 망보지기 아니 이류 선로지 셰딩 선로지 요리스 제단게 gen라게 고라르세제다도 잠베 남샤준도 간주 슝기 나로라야 아니 머리비기 펜비기 마란주게 단다 다 수구디 마란주기다 뇨모 때니 지원들이 빵사를 산질 요마리 다 유류 참모 단다 유류 참모세디 사제기 사메기 레당 머리 바자에 살 때는 중샤교기 류딜이 유류스 치워 아니 이나양 다 단다 가시 지금 dumzen 세워 매비네 단동양 아니 산지 귤라 딜레 타베다 장생 파바도 절레 타베 아니 유류 참모지 고르이 유류 더요 요아레스지 셰디고 요데 콩도 그 세우스 케요 말이 다 이나야 단다딜라 리버디 가려요스라나 단다 뒤시 좀 슬라도 잠베 아니 풍비두슬라도 잠베 풍비두도 문진 제베깔라 유류 참모도 문진 제시어다 더 나로라
No. And so, in terms of taking, taking on the when we're talking about then connecting this conversation to taking the achieving the sort of form body of the Buddha, this and relating this discussion to the what the substantial cause of the form body of the Buddha would be. So, what is where does that form body of the Buddha come from? What's the substantial cause that helps to create that? And there are many there are many discussions of this and many different presentations of this. And some people, it's quite often said that this is what's called a mental body. So the substantial cause of the form body of the Buddha being a mental body in the the higher grounds of the bodhisattva paths, which then become the form body. So there are many people who explain it in that way. But my teacher is also thinking about it as a sort of said that in normally in many of the texts we so we talk about, for instance, in a sentient being situation of the ignorance throwing us ignorance driving the process of throwing us into a new body and attaining this new physical body. So that would obviously not be the process through which the form body of a Buddha was produced, because the Buddha doesn't have any ignorance. And then there's also this discussion of whether it could be this what do you call it? This sort of mental, what's called a mental body. But this mental body, as we discussed earlier, the causes of this mental body are the imprints, the ground of the imprints laid down by ignorance, and the untainted karma are the two which produce this. This is on the bodhisattva levels. The bodhisattvas take this illusory body, but this so some people say that would be the mental body would be the substantial cause of the Buddha's form body. But my teacher also said there isn't a quote to support this. But if we were using reasoning, and then we talk about the overcoming the four maras, and one of those. Laipuidu, Pumbidu. Sorry, yeah. So then, in one of the four maras that we overcome is the mara of the aggregates, and so my teacher wondered whether it could be some more subtle form, a subtle sort of physical form, subtler than Yulule Tahare.
Yulule Munzinchures.
Aleo. Because of the
Yigirang Shingures, Labiores.
Nusin Chegidus. So maybe this.
Not maybe.
This.
My statement is like this, just for me.
So this is definitely because this the mara of the aggregates that could be overcome. Maybe that could be the mara of the aggregates to be conquered. Conquering the four maras. That would be identified as the yilu. As a subtle form of this mental body.
Do you zambe? Sangilia Yulu Yoris Utujago Mendus. Sangi Yuluris Lago Mendus. Karjan Senat Ta Sangi Tangi Anjo Pardo Nalola. Pardo Nalola. Any Sugu Nilang, Karza Pardu Nalo, Pardu Lugi, any Nile, the any Shebi Shabe Pajaji, any the Ilu Kasav, the Kazanada, Pardu Lugi, Nilan Chetuguna, any Gajan Tamusum to Cho Sasha Yugi, Le Tigi, Shabe Pajat Nalola, any Sulun Rotuniji, Shechen Dudus. Timado Injimijia.
But then also, it's not necessary to posit this special kind of illusory, because a mental body. It's called a mental body, as the substantial cause of the form body of the Buddha. Because just as we discussed in terms of the intermediate state, where the imprints laid down by sort of sembele ki shape bacha. So this urging, this mental factor of urging, which then lays down which is a mind, right? It's a form of mind which then lays down the imprint. So if we accepting that as a substantial cause of the form in the intermediate for the body in the intermediate state, then we can say that of all the over the three countless eons of creation of all of these karma over the positive karma over the three countless eons, and the imprints that were left by that, then on the basis of that, we don't need a further explanation of this sort of subtle form of illusory body in order to describe what would be the substantial cause of the form body of the Buddha.
다디 딘디지 셰우도 점에 딱 ranzo 파 양교 다 바도 나는 게 셰우도 점에 아니 the most funniest thing is in the intermediate state when we say that person has like a the form body like us. My pardo, not the coming up pardo, maybe a little bit soon. My pardo from the past. So similar nose, the big nose, and then the short guy, same. That's what it said.
The lines on
The wrinkles, it's there. Yeah, that's so that's really funny to know, because sometimes it is easy to think. It is quite nice to think in this way. Otherwise, we say that our body, this flesh and bone, is given by my parents, and then we also think part of all our how we look, everything comes from our parents. But now this is one clear answer. Your parents after the result of the having the pleasure, and then the body shape and everything is from your own karmic. So you cannot blame your parents. I cannot go to my mother and say, I'm so short because of you.
You had those lines on your forehead even when you were about 4 or 6 years old.
Yes.
You already had
Yes.
the wrinkles.
Yeah. So that I cannot sue my parents. So normally people say like the how you look, that depends on the parents. So no, it's so the clear message from the way of from Pardo to here. Penjele jigi pangbara isla.
Yeah, so thrown by one throwing karma, the bardo and the form in the body, and then the future existence in the birth existence. Penchigile chigru pang.
All the penjele jigi pangbara is. The you do days long, and can tasa mata. We
don't read
read a
a bit,
little
we'll
bit,
never
otherwise
finish.
we will stay somewhere here. That 대단 레단사 녀모비 콤베게베네 대단들 집에는 민감 양나 되는데 따라 민규 온게 주바때 수제마인 비풍부시더니 민식 탄예도 우스 다디 로셔나
Kasete. Mingzi. Konde.
넘버 쉐바 슈주나 민도 수니 차버 주르스다.
The all and so reading, reading underneath, the last two lines of verse 2, so it says, after consciousness has entered, name and form occur. So it reads, the paragraph under that verse reads, here it is called name because being affected by actions and afflictions leads to the place of birth, or the four aggregates that are not form are called name because of rushing after objects. The term form indicates that it is perishable or damageable. This form and the previous name, because it rushes after, together our name and form, this form and the previous name, because it rushes after, together our name and form are sort of said to be name and form. So
세상에 두시 유공기 주고 나스 명세디 두시 유공기 주고를 수도 딱고 가르쳐 오래 가란주 베나 잘라도지 케용치 뒤에 샤비나 디잘라데 내쇼슬랍나 고 문진 직톱지 내야도지도와 잘라디 케쇼라나 독도 직 켄 용해지도와 다 베나 저랑 아메리카로 로쇼슬랍나 아메리카로 로쇼슬랍나 대 아메리카로 레송 삼제 대하레마도 아메리카스 지제 독도직 되면서 개라고 말봐. 다들 두시 공부 바로
두셰 세.
네. 수공기 바 수글라샤고 말했어. 수디 가려나 식도로마도 통도로마도 창도로마. 대인도 잠베 딜라 두시 공부 주고서 얘기지 시 말봐. 다 민교 공부 주고 두시 공부 주고서 잠베 콜로 수나지 통해요 말에 콜로 두시 체제 다 딜레서 딜레샤 딜레도세 두시 공부 주고 요레스. 다 공부 하마시더라.
So in terms of the so here in terms of this is particularly talking about in relation to this name and form, and so under the through the power of sort of this kind of identification. What word do you use, Alex? I'll keep it in distinguishing. So this under the power of this distinguishing aggregate. Then we're able to sort of, it's a sort of way to distinguish phenomena. So for instance, if you put something in front of me here like this and sort of point to it, and then there's a sort of identification of this sort of, so physical things, the form things are identified by, because what did you say, Rinpoche? The Kalapa dan.
식도로만 다다지나도와 식도로만 차도로만 통도로만 정말 요로와.
So these physical things, sort of recognition of them, identification of them through this aggregate of distinguishing, then they're seeable, they're sort of touchable. There, it says here they're also able to be sort of harmed or destroyed. It says nudarong. So, but then there are other things which are. Rinpoche used the example of somebody says, "Do you go to America?" And you say, "Go to America," and even if you arrive in America, there's nothing that you can actually sort of get your hands on, so to speak. It's not sort of.
So you say go to America, and then your teacher tells you go to America, and go to America, and to come back to give the present from America is just maybe I love in New York or something. That's something symbol of something represents America. But there's no thing that you can like. This is
get hold of. You can't get hold of.
제장가 명당 아니 두시 명명세대 두시기 왕기 샤고에 진도쯤에 명스.
So then when they talk about this name, so not the form, but the second one of name, then that's why they say that the name is sort of posited by using this recognition or identification.
That so now my Buddhist should take a little break now. So maybe today I stop here, and then Alex will do the review, and you can have the discussion. So I stop here with the one a very inspiring story, which happened to one of my friends in Nepal, relating with the Parto. So. There is a very old man who is a businessman, Tibetan businessman. His wife is so devoted, a good practitioner, but the husband, he's not really into Dharma. And sometimes he can be a little bit of arrogant, or maybe a little bit he will, even his wife says, please do some kind of Om Mani Padme Hum, or do some simple things. But then he says, no need all this. So if your mind is clean and you are happy, no need Dharma. That's his kind of attitude. And then, but what really happened one time, he fainted. And then he kind of fainted. And then for several hours, his body is almost getting cold. And it's more like he's finished. So then his wife cried and then called friends around. And then, because this is some big tragedy happened in the family. So very hard to accept this reality. And then when they are thinking about now what to do, how to face this, and then wife is crying, the whole family is crying around him. And then what happened one time, so after a few hours later, when they are now giving up, now he's gone, and then he starts slowly moving. And then it's a little bit frightening too, isn't it? Zombie. So then he slowly came to the conscious, and then he's surprised, full shocked, and then he stares at his loved ones, and then he says, "Where am I? Where am I?" Hard to adjust to this life, you know.
Back to this life.
And then they said, "What really happened?" And then after a few minutes later, when he calmed down, and then he says, "It was so scary." Because he completely, when he got offended, he just thought like kind of a darkness, and then he can see all the kind of dissolution. And then ultimately he hears so many kind of a creature sound and so many scary sounds chasing him. But then he has no kind of control to sit, but he thinks like, I have to run. So he runs so much, but still he can hear all these scary things just chasing him. And then finally he felt like even he sees a small, the hole, like the red hole, that will be do. I wanted to hide. I wanted to go into this. And then somehow he felt so tired of, and then he automatically says from his mouth, so he prays to His Holiness Dalai Lama. That is his habit. When Tibetan people sometimes say to swear, they say on the name of His Holiness Dalai Lama, they say that. So that also he has the habit. So then he says at the time in the kind of, in Parto now, so he says, and then automatically some kind of these sounds go slowly,
slowly
disappears, and then he can see this white light appearing, like you can see this so much foggy, and then slowly it goes back, then he finds himself with the family. And the wonderful about this thing is, from that day on, nobody needs to remind him to do his commitment. He is the person who wakes up the earliest and tells everybody you should do it. So yeah, this is the something happened with one of my friends. So yeah, so now we go through the remaining text tomorrow. Okay.